On today's episode of the CLS Experience, we have a very special treat. He's a former WWE superstar, multiple-time heavyweight champion, and one of the most legendary UFC fighters in the history of the sport. He was the first person to be inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame and is the man behind the iconic Lion's Den. He's a champion in and out of the octagon and one of the most dangerous men to ever walk planet Earth. He's a businessman, author, philanthropist, and keynote speaker. He's just an overall juggernaut in all facets of life. And simply put, he's one of the baddest dudes in the history of combat sports. Please welcome the iconic world's most dangerous man, Ken Shamrock. How you doing, Ken?
Wow, man. I think we can just end on that right there. I love it.
I take great pride in the intros. I want to do good by you. How'd I do?
That was awesome, man. I appreciate the thought and the effort. Absolutely.
Yeah. And like I was saying before we went on air, I'm such a fan of yours. I know the audience is going to fall in love with you in 2 seconds in case they weren't already familiar. But I know you've done a lot of these, as do I, obviously. You have my word. We're going to make this different. We're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to keep it fresh. And you and I will manufacture magic together here today.
Let's do it.
Before we start at the beginning, because obviously the audience loves to get a little bit of the beginning of the history and the backdrop a little bit. We're going to start off and have a little fun and get a little weird. You ready to get weird?
Let's go, man. I can do weird.
Ken, what's your superpower?
My superpower? And I truly believe that when people get to know me and they truly know me as a person inside and out, I truly believe my superpowers is my love and affection for people.
Ooh, I love that. I'm not necessarily shocked because, like I said, I'm such a fan and preparation breeds confidence. So I do my homework out of respect, but also because I have so much love and respect for you throughout the years. I knew that about you, but I think a lot of people, that might be surprising to them.
Yeah, because when you see me in my career, I was intense. And I took it very seriously walking into the ring or the cage. It was my job and I didn't want to lose. And so I had a lot of intensity, but at the same time, outside the ring too, I cared about everything that was happening. I cared about what the fans thought. I cared about what my family was doing. I cared about my kids. I cared about my friends. So all those things that you wouldn't see me in the fight sense. But people who know me outside the ring would see that, and especially now that I have the opportunity to spend more time with people. I think more and more people are starting to realize who Ken Shamrock really is.
Yeah, I love that. And I know that you have a big heart, and I'm glad that the rest of the world is kind of seeing that other side of you. So I think that's really special. Describe yourself, Ken, in 3 words.
Yeah, I would probably say easygoing, intense, and determined.
Oof. No one would doubt that. Yeah. Intensity, I mean, that's a massive understatement right there. What's something weird about you that a lot of people might not know?
I like to play golf.
Really?
Yeah, I love golf.
Always, or is that somewhat recent?
No, I've been playing for, well, let's see, since I was 36. I started when I was 36 playing golf.
Nice.
Played in tournaments, celebrity tournaments. I played, actually just take my kids out to the 9 holes and we take up 4 carts with the family and we played the par 3s. And so we haven't done that in a while. It's been a while because of COVID and all that stuff going on. But yeah, that was something that I really enjoyed doing because it was fun. It was competitive, but I didn't take it serious.
Yeah. That's interesting. I like the way you said that. It's competitive because you're competitive by nature. So you're always going to want to win. But at the end of the day, it's not too serious. It's not exactly like your life's on the line, so to speak. Love that.
Right.
Yeah. You've been through such an incredible journey, the highest of highs. Obviously, we all have some lows and so forth. At this point of your career and life today, what makes you feel most alive, Ken?
Well, I would say probably being around my family, being able to take I've got 16 grandkids, 1 on the way, 7 kids. And so really what really is enjoyable for me is when we all get together and we get to spend time and take them to the park and just spending time. And so to me, that's what makes me, that's fun. That right now, that's what I love.
Yeah. And it's like in life, we have different seasons, right? At some point in the past, obviously it was, get the guy in front of you in the octagon, so to speak. But now it's all about family. I definitely appreciate that. I know this one might be a little challenging because you have so many, but if you had to pick one, and I won't hold you to it, so to speak, what was your favorite moment of your fighting career?
Yeah, like you said, I had a lot of great moments, even history moments that will always be remembered. So I've got to go with, and again, like I said, this isn't putting down all the other great things I was able to do, but I've got to go with being able to be the first to be the mixed martial arts champion in Japan with the Pancrase organization. I won a 2-day tournament, 16-man 2-day tournament for men all over the world. I won that, becoming the first mixed martial artist fighter to become a champion in the world, right? There was no other fighting going on at that time. That was just Pancrase at the time.
And Ken, how many fights were you having a day during that time span?
Yeah, I think we did three. We did 3 in one day. Yeah, 3 in one day. And then we turned around and did the finals the next day.
That's nuts, especially compared to today.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, even in the UFC where we would fight 4 times, it was just basic bare knuckle. It was intense. It was different, right? But like I said, I think that because it literally, I was the first in the world, like, because there was nothing happening other than Pancrase. UFC came 2.5 years after Pancrase. So everything before that was all entertainment, predetermined. Pancrase was actually the real mixed martial arts, the first real mixed martial arts. And it was a 2-day tournament to crown the champion, and I won that. So that's pretty special to know that everything that goes on around the world, at least to my knowledge, Pancrase was the first true mixed martial artist fighting organization, and I won that belt first.
Yeah, I love that you said that. It's so special and it's so true. And I would dare to say that you put the UFC and honestly MMA on the map. There might have been some things going on around the world and so to speak, but it started to create buzz and you were the face of that. You were the original. So, and obviously that moment, what a tribute and obviously such a special situation.
Yeah, thank you. And I thank you for the question though. That was a good one.
Yeah. No problem. And we'll do
made me think.
Good. That's what it's all about. We'll do one more weird one and then we'll hop around and we'll do the journey. I know that you've had some unbelievable rivalries, really special, epic ones. If you had to choose one, and again, I won't hold you to this, what was your favorite opponent in the octagon throughout the years?
Yeah, I've got to go with, I got to start with Royce. I wouldn't say, the favorite part of it because, in the books, I lost all 3 of them, or one of them was a tie. But I think that was special because no matter what it says in the books, people that were there watching the fights, they know what I did to Royce in the second fight and beat him up, bloodied his face. They put a time limit in there just so that if that did happen, like where I was able to fight longer than him, that he would get saved by the bell and they wouldn't have any judges to render him a loser. So, but for me, I look at that as really kickstarting the MMA market or the no holds barred market in the US. So I think that fight really was special.
Yeah,
those fights were special.
Oh yeah, that's such an understatement. That was like the original rivalry. And I was watching something recently on you, like a documentary or an interview, and I remember you were like, "Who is this guy coming out in his pajamas?" Right?
Yeah. That guy in the pajamas almost put me to sleep.
Another legend, and it was him and you that got inducted to the Hall of Fame, right?
Yes. Yep.
And rightfully so. Awesome. The audience loves to jump around. So, and of course, I want to be respectful for your time, but we got to get a little bit of idea from the beginning. I know your upbringing was challenging to say the least. You grew up in Atlanta, Georgia. Is that accurate, Ken?
I did, near Macon. Warner Robins.
Yeah. Yeah. And then fighting kind of gravitated towards you, or you gravitated towards fighting kind of at an early age. You were in a broken home and so forth, right?
Yeah, it was really the only way for, especially in the area that I was in and the way we were raised, fighting was the only way I could get respect or get the things that I wanted. I didn't know anything else. And somebody said something to you, I was taught for a very young age that you got their respect right away, whether you won or lost. You went after them and you fought them, no matter how big they were, and no matter what, you fought them. And that's just the way I was raised. So for me, fighting was something that was normal.
Yeah. And then obviously there was a major life-altering incident when you were just 10 years young, right?
Yeah, I got stabbed behind 7-Eleven. Ended up getting into this fight with these kids from another area. We weren't going to school. We were hanging out behind 7-Eleven. We were doing things we weren't supposed to be doing. These guys come walking up, obviously territories and people that you don't belong there. So we got into it. I ended up getting stabbed in the arm. He went for my neck. I put my arm up and he stabbed me in the arm. The blade went into my arm. And when they pulled it out, blood spurted out. So I passed out and I woke up in the hospital, handcuffed to the hospital bed. That was my, because I had already been stealing and strong arm robbery and all kinds of stuff already, but I hadn't got caught. I was always on the run. And so once I got stabbed and went in the hospital and got fingerprinted, that's when I started actually the best thing that ever happened to me was getting caught, because that forced me into the system. And the system led me to after several failures in different homes, it led me to the Shamrock boys home.
Yeah. How come you think there was so many failures in other homes, or was it just that Bob and the Shamrock boys home was just very special?
Yeah. I think that anybody that has been through the system understands what I'm saying, that when you go to some of these homes, they're filthy. Yeah. They've got these beds and sheets and pillows and they're just old because they got kids rotating through there all the time. And it's just filthy. Most of these kids don't clean. They don't shower. It's just filthy. Like it's ugly. And the home parents, they call them home parents, house parents, work in shifts. So some would get on there 4 hours or 8 hours, whatever the shifts were. They would leave. Another house parent would come in, and then they would be there for a while. And so there was really it wasn't an attachment. There wasn't a family atmosphere. It was like being a number, and you literally just did things to earn days. And then when you earn those days, you go home. And so it was a recycling of constantly repeating the same stuff, because no one was really trying to change the direction you were going. No one was really trying to affect the problems that you had, trying to fix them. So it was like being in prison or jail. You go in there, you do your time. Nobody's counseling you. Nobody cares about what you're doing. You do your time, you get sent home, and whoa, maybe you'll think about changing. It doesn't work like that. And so the biggest difference when I went to the Shamrock boys home was that Bob Shamrock, it was his home, and it was a mansion. I mean, it was a beautiful home. And he didn't have house parents there. He lived there with my mom, Dee Dee. They lived there. This was their home. And then they literally had counselors that he handpicked to make sure that they were caring and that they were nurturing counselors. They weren't just there to make money, do their time, and go home. We weren't just meat. And that they had to talk with us, and they had to have patience with us, and they had to have a plan that my dad would set in place with each one of these kids that had different sets of problems. Like, for instance, I was very angry. And so I was outward with everything. If somebody said something, I would fight them. I would beat them up or get beat up. And it was that simple, right? And so figuring out, how do you fix a kid that's angry at the world, that literally goes and punches holes in the wall and fights people and gets angry when you try to talk to him? What do you do with a kid like that? And so the thing about my dad, who wasn't my dad at the time, would always figure out ways to be able to help kids vent their frustration through different types of exercises. And for me, he literally led me into playing football, led me into wrestling, softball, basketball. I played everything. But what really stuck was football and wrestling, because I could get as aggressive. I could hurt people. And I could hit them as hard as I want. And I didn't have to worry about getting arrested for it. And so it was really a great way. Then all of a sudden I became relevant. Now the teachers and the coaches everybody wanted me on the football field. Everybody wanted me on the wrestling mat. And so therefore they gave me extra help to get the grades that I needed, because Bob Shamrock, who had the group home, said that if you were going to play sports, which I want you to, but you need to have a C, not an average, but a C in every class. And I didn't have an education. So I had to do special ed and work my grades up. But once I found that, and I had the experience with the sports, and I started becoming relevant and popular because I was good at something, I realized there was more to life and that I could get something out of this if I was good at something. But in the same sense, what do you do with somebody who isn't aggressive, but more of like, for instance, there was a story with a kid who was in continuation, wasn't in high school. And he was sitting in class and he drew a picture. And he drew this picture of all these bodies on the ground and heads cut off, and he's standing on top of the bodies, holding the heads and saying, kill them all. And the teacher freaked out, like, oh, and sent him to the office and talked about putting him on Ritalin and whatever those things are to fix his mind because he's crazy. And so he goes home, and I remember my mom, Dee Dee, she looked at the picture, and everybody that this kid has ever come across, because this kid had talent, man, he could draw, but everything he drew was him venting his anger. That's how he vented it. He wasn't a guy that fought or did anything like that. He drew. And everybody that he's ever seen, that ever saw any of the pictures he would draw, would always criticize him for what he was doing, saying that he was sick, and that they would try to talk to him and try to draw out what was happening. And it would just make him mad. Like, this is his way. And so my mom immediately saw the talent, and she goes, that's really good. And he, his reaction was like, well, okay, what's the catch, right?
Right.
And she says, no, it's really good. She said, I'll tell you what, I'll let you draw whatever you want to draw. We had an hour study for a half hour. And then after that, you do the rest of your work. And if you need extra time to do your work, you do that. But I want you to just go ahead and draw. And you draw whatever you want. So that went on for a little while. He would just draw some really sick. And then he tried to challenge and just draw some really sick stuff. And she would never budge, right? And she would just look at the talent, and she kept telling him, you are very talented. She says, why don't we try to figure out if we can use this in a constructive way? After she started building a relationship with him. And he goes, well, what do you mean? He says, I don't know what else. She goes, we're putting an addition onto the house here. Why don't you draw what you think that addition would look like? So he draws the addition, beautiful. I mean, just elaborate and detailed, and lines were perfect. It was just really good. She was like, well, that's really good. And she goes, so if I was to tell you to build this, she goes, how would you do that? And he looked at her and he goes, well, we just get some boards and wood. And she goes, there's a whole lot more to that. She said, but your drawings can literally help people build the things that you feel in your head, this creativity that you have. You can draw things, and people would be able to build them by off of what you draw, but you got to have specs. You got to know how long something is and how wide something is. And so this kid she put the guy that was doing the construction there and was drawing the parameters and everything on there. And so he got with him, and he started learning all this stuff. And obviously his kid didn't like school. He didn't like math, he didn't like anything. But once he started seeing this and how this design and these drawings worked into actually building buildings, he stuck onto it. I mean, he glued to it, and he got really good at it. To this day, from my knowledge, this guy's an architect. From my understanding, he went to school to be an architect. Now, this could have went either way with both of us, right? It could have been, you're a violent kid, we got to put you on medication, and then be done with it, right? Instead, Bob Shamrock and Dee Dee saw talent in between all of that violence and that anger and that hurt and that frustration.
Yep.
And they pulled it out into something positive, which made us feel good, because now we were doing something that people liked.
Yes, I love that story. First of all, I don't think I'm the first one to tell you the gift of storytelling, Ken, but the fact that they nurtured these talents of yours, it just needed to be channeled. That's such a metaphor and so valuable for the audience. And it just goes to show you how important having support or even a mentor or a mentorship is at a young age, because we're like rough sketches, right? We need some sort of guidance to kind of apply to things. And you're absolutely right. That story could have gone one of two ways. So valuable and so important. And then also you kind of learn that fighting in a controlled environment is obviously productive as opposed to an uncontrolled environment.
Yeah, there was a situation where I ended up playing defensive back before I moved up to linebacker, and it was one of my first games, and the kid came across and I hit this kid so hard he was blowing snot bubbles, right? And I jumped up, and my feeling was like, run, because this was the same frustration and anger I would have when I would get into a fight. And you had to run because your cops were going to be called, right? Or you hurt somebody you don't want to be around when people come. So I jump up and I'm like, okay, I feel the urge to run because I just hit this kid and I hurt him. Then all of a sudden, everybody starts patting me on the helmet and shoulder pads. Nice hit, nice hit. And I was like, yeah. Then I look over to the coaches and they're like, yeah, do it again, man. That's the way to play. And I'm like, wow. Then the enemy, which to me at that time were the parents.
Right.
They were screaming and saying, kill him. That's the way to kill him. Do it again. And I'm like, dude, there's something wrong here. Like, this is not right. In my head, because I'm thinking I just beat this kid up. That's the mentality that I had when I hit him. But I remember asking my dad, going, what is the difference? They're giving me permission to hurt somebody. I can have a plastic helmet, I have plastic shoulder pads, and I can hit him as hard as I want. And it's okay. But if somebody calls me a name, disrespects me, or wants to get something of mine, and I fight them and I hurt them, I get in trouble. How is that not right? I'm protecting myself. I'm protecting what I own. How is that not right? And he looked at me and he said, listen, life is just very, very complicated, but very simple. He goes, in life, if you play within the rules, whatever those rules are in life, with whatever you're doing, you can achieve whatever you want to. But you have to understand the landscape. You have to understand the rules and what those rules are. And then you may go as far as you want. Like, for instance, football. When you hit that kid, if you jumped up and kicked him in the head after you were done, they'd have thrown a flag.
Yeah,
or kicked you out of the game. Or the fans, right? The fans, we start screaming at you because you're costing their team. The coaches are angry. Yep. It's a reverse. Because why? Because you went outside the rules. You stay within the rules. You can hit, hurt, and do whatever you want if you're within those rules. And to me, it made sense because I related life to sports.
Yes.
I related rules, regulations in sports the same way I regulate rules and regulations in life. If I stay within those boundaries in life, I can achieve whatever I want to do.
Whatever you want.
Yep.
Such a powerful lesson. I love this. And I love you, bud. This is fantastic. So true. And once you understand the landscape, it reminds me of that movie, The Matrix. Like, once you become unplugged, then you can go back in with the right mindset and so forth. And obviously I could talk to you for 10 hours, but I want to jump around a little bit and be respectful for your time. Sooner than later, we're 17 years old and I believe you're fighting at this point and you suffer a broken neck. Is that accurate at that age?
Actually, I was wrestling.
Okay.
I was undefeated my senior year, went into practice, shot on a kid, practicing, ended up in a bad spot, broke my neck, was on the ground. And I remember myself feeling very weak.
Did you know right away, Ken?
I didn't know anything. I just knew I couldn't move. Like, I didn't have the ability to, it just felt like I went numb. Like something was pinched and it just kind of numb. And I remember just laying there going, why can't I move? Why can't I get up? Right. And I remember feeling just confused, like laying there. And I'm thinking to myself, get up. And I'm not getting up. And I don't know, like I said, this is a long time ago. My head was dizzy and foggy. But I just felt like I was laying there and I'm not moving. And coach is saying, get up, get up. I'm not getting up. And felt like forever, but probably a hour later, I'm being scooped up. I guess they call it a Star Wars board. They slide a thing underneath, clamp it, put a thing over the top, pick me up, put me in an ambulance. And I go 2.5 hours to Redding, California, because in Susanville, there's no specialist. There's nobody there. So I get there And I don't know how long it was forever. But when I get there, now listen, people have to understand there's a difference between a fractured neck and a broken neck. It's a big difference. You can keep going with a fractured neck.
Okay.
Not smart, because you can end up paralyzed.
Right.
But that's what I'm trying to say is, like, I'm there and I can't move. And then I go to the hospital, they put me in this bed, right? And then I'm in this bed and they got me strapped down. And the only way, even on my back, the only way for me to watch TV is through a mirror. I mean, I can't sit up. They can't move the bed up. I mean, I cannot move my upper body at all. And so when I got to go to the bathroom, they got to flip me over, whatever side I got to go. There's a hole in the bed. They have to clean me. I can't move. And this is something I try to explain to people. When this happened to me, man, there was no fighting through this. I was done. I'm laying in bed, and I don't know how my dad was sitting bedside. He comes in, puts this x-ray up there, and I'm not an expert, but when I saw it, because I'm laying there and I'm looking through this mirror and I'm looking at the x-ray and I'm thinking, doesn't look good. I mean, it literally, you see my neck shifted. Like there's a part where it's like, it's just shifted. And I'm thinking, and I don't know, now I have knowledge of it, but I'm thinking, what about the cord that went through? That could have been cut.
Right.
I mean, I could have been dead.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking how close that was when I was looking at that x-ray. And I'm thinking to myself, if I would have moved, if I had to move, if I had the ability to move, I wouldn't be here today.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, as I'm looking at it, I'm like, okay, it doesn't look right. And I remember him telling my dad, which was the words I'll never forget. And he goes, "You broke your neck." And I was like, okay, let it sink in. I go, well, how long is it going to take before I'm recovered and I can get back to playing football and wrestling? And he kind of paused for a minute, and he just like, I'm 17, right? How am I supposed to know what that is? Like, I mean, and I've always recovered, right? I can always recover on something. So he looks at my dad and he goes, let's walk outside and talk. So he goes out and he starts talking to my dad, and I'm like, my dad comes back in, and I said, so how long, what do you say? And so then my dad breaks it down, like, this is going to take a long time. He said, this is going to be something that's not going to happen very quickly. This is going to be a slow recovery. And I still didn't. I said, well, what does that mean? And he goes, listen, the doc says you're being able to play football and wrestling is over. I mean, it's not, you're not going to play contact sports. This is what the doctor's saying, right? He's like, telling my dad, this is what it is. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm nobody without sports. This is what made me relevant, made me get grades, made me the man I am. And I'm like, you're going to take that away? I was like, I didn't do anything wrong. Why is this happening? I did everything right. I changed. And I remember thinking to myself, why? What the hell did I do? And of course, the pity patty starts, and I get depressed, and I'm sunk in. I don't want to do anything, man. I'm just like, I don't want to eat. I don't want to watch TV. I want to sleep all day. I want to just people to make me feel comfortable.
Yep.
And I start slipping. And I remember my dad, we talked about everything, always trying to keep me up. And I was just, one word and didn't want to talk. And I remember he said to me, he goes, and these words, man, they played my whole life out. And he said to me, he goes, you can lay there and pout about it, or you can do something about it. It's like, you're the only one that can, change the direction you're going. Nobody's going to do this for you. Nobody did it to you before either. This is something that happens, and what are you going to do about it? This is on you. Like, he's like, I can't do anything to help you. I can introduce you. I can give you opportunities, but I can't do it for you. Like, you have to get yourself through this. And I remember thinking to myself, I was like, you're right. In my mind, it was going through there going, how did this doctor who is telling me that I can't play contact sports, I mean, I'm done. It's like, he doesn't know me. No. He doesn't know what I'm willing to do to get to where I want to go. He has no idea what my work ethic is, what my determination is. He has no idea. So why is he telling me that I can't do something when he doesn't know me? And I literally thought that in my head. And I was like, I'm not, this isn't over. And that really got me out motivated. I mean, I started to come back. Obviously, I think this is where I think having an understanding.
Correct me if I'm wrong. You had the halo on, right?
That's where I was going. I was like, man, I got bolts in my head where it's stabilized, and I got a chest plate on where the bar's coming up in my head. The only way my upper body moved is if my hips moved. None of this moved. Torso, neck, head did not move. So when they put this thing on, they had to teach me to walk, because I didn't have head movement to balance. So whenever I would walk around a corner, I would fall off balance because I didn't have that head balance. People don't realize it because it's a natural thing.
Yep.
And then when I got it off, it's the same thing. I had to learn to walk again because I didn't have that balance, and I was normally used to walking like this. And then when I got my head back, I had to get strength in my neck so it didn't fall. And then I had to learn how to walk with my neck because I hadn't been used to moving. So it was an extreme obstacle that I had to overcome. And I hear
mentally and physically.
It is. It really was.
And Ken, didn't your pops also say something like, do you really think God brought you this far?
Yeah.
Now?
Yeah, that was another thing. Where,
I break down. I love that.
Yeah, it was one of the times where he was talking to me, and I was questioning, why this happened to me. Like, I did everything right. I changed. I was getting good grades. I was becoming a normal kid. And I wasn't, I felt like I didn't do anything wrong. Why would this happen to me? Right. As a young kid, 17-year-old kid. And my dad literally said, listen, you know what? Do you truly believe that God would bring you this far and walk away from you? He said, there's a reason for this, right? I don't know what it is. You don't know what it is, but trust in him, because there's no way that he brought you to this point and you were successful and this happened to you, that he's going to turn around and walk away from you. He's still here. You just have to believe in that. And I did. I truly did. That's why I'm here.
Yeah. And I know a little bit about your faith and so forth. Did that kind of come to fruition before that moment, or was that later on after that moment?
No, it was before that.
That's why that message probably really resonated.
Oh, yeah, because I've heard it before.
Yeah.
Where, trusting God, we're all going to go through different situations and different, setbacks.
Yep.
But don't blame God. That's not God's fault. That's things that we do that cause those things to happen. And then we have to deal with that, however that is. Yep. And sometimes we're put in situations where God doesn't test people. Now, I don't believe that. Some people do, but I don't. I think it's just a natural way of life, the way we live. Things happen, and we have to learn how to deal with those things no matter what they are, and have faith.
Yes. Adversity is a part of life. I mean, bottom line. In fact, I got to be honest with you. This week on Monday, I had surgery. I'm training for the Chicago Marathon, and I had an injury. It was supposed to be a sprained ligament. I got an MRI, and it turned out there was a tumor in my foot. It caught me off guard. So I had the surgery on Monday, got it taken out, but it is what it is. It's adversity. My thought process is, thank God I got injured. So I saw the MRI, find that there was a tumor. But I got to tell you, my spirits were down a little bit for a day or so. And I take great pride in always being on fire. Speaking to you here today and hearing your story and so forth, it really hits home, and I really appreciate it. I want to acknowledge you for that.
Yeah, cool. I appreciate that. But again, like you said, we all go through obstacles and different things. And as we grow older, I truly believe that every single one of us is put on this earth to strive to be as successful as we can be. And once we get there, it's our obligation to turn around and help other people do the same thing.
100%. Yeah. Love this, brother. So from there, you get out of the hospital, right? And then, correct me if I'm wrong, but you said something like this: now it begins.
Yeah, because when I got out, my determination, like I said, from that one moment of like, there's nobody could tell me that it's over. I have to know it's over. Only way I'm going to know that is by going out there and trying to do what I love doing, get myself in a position to get back where I want to be, to play what I want to play, and then we'll see if it's over. And so that was my whole mentality. Even when I had the halo on, I was doing bench presses. I remember tearing the bolts out of my head playing basketball, and I literally got into a fight because a kid called me heavy metal. And so I just lost it and got in a fight, tore the bolts out of my head, bleeding down my face and bones cracking. It was a nasty sound. But because of the mentality that I had, it was like flipping a switch, always has been. Flip the switch, I go. And there's no thought process, there's no rationality, it's just go. And that's even with the halo on, I had no fear of anything happening to me. I just did. And I don't know where that comes from. But it's hard for people to truly understand, because you hear people say it all the time, but I don't truly believe that they truly understand what I'm talking about. When you have a broken neck, you literally got bone out of your hip fused in your neck in order to keep its strength. And then you're in this halo where four bolts are in your head. They tighten them down with a torque wrench. And then you can't move up your body.
Like
and
a mechanic.
Someone says something. Yes. Someone says something to you and you fight them while those bolts are tearing out of your head, and you don't even stop for a second. You keep going.
Yeah.
And so that's a different mentality. I think there's probably 1% in the world 1% of people in the world that have that kind of mentality, where even if there's a gun pointed at them, if they flip the switch, they're running through the bullets.
Oh yeah.
Maybe it ain't going to end well, but that's not what they're thinking. It's just the goal, the thing that's bothering them. They're going to get to it.
Yeah, it reminds. I'm a big WWE fan also since I was a kid, when Hogan and Flair and all them. So you're one of my favorite wrestlers. And I remember when you used to flip the switch, so to speak, and then it was get out of his way. He was about to go nuts. But I imagine that was created from real life experience from back in the day. So I definitely appreciate all this. Also, I know that you kind of look at adversity, and you say 1%. I would even dare say like the 1% of the 1%. You don't take adversity personal. You just think, okay, what do I have to do, to overcome this and get past it? And I think that's a beautiful thing, because so many people crumble with adversity because their mind starts going, what if I can't do this, or I can't do that, or how am I going to get past this? You don't take it too personally. You just kind of get down to strategy. Is that right?
Yeah. And it all goes back to when I was laying in bed. My dad told me, you're going to lay there or you do something about it. And it's the way I've lived my life from that point on. It's like, no matter what it is, it's not whether you deserved it or whether, what, it doesn't matter, right? You're in it, you're there.
Yep.
And so you're the only person that's going to change the situation. And so I've thought that all the way through my life and my career, with my family, kids, my fighting, everything. It was never a time where something happened to me that I allowed it to interfere with where I was trying to get to. It may have slowed me down, but it never interfered with the goal that I was going to reach.
Yep. I love this. From there, how do we get to start fighting in Japan, and then obviously eventually to the UFC and becoming the face of MMA on the planet?
Yeah, I started out wrestling with Buzz Sawyer in Sacramento, and he ended up passing away. So I ended up going to Mooresville, North Carolina with Nelson Royal, and worked in his camp for a while. Got an opportunity to go to Baba's group in Japan and did some pro wrestling there. I was doing that for probably about 2 years. And then I had a friend show me this tape, which is called the UWF, at the time it was called hybrid wrestling, where it was like what we see today, but with a predetermined ending. So you had all the submissions, the kicks, the rope escapes, all the stuff that you normally would see in a fight other than rope escapes. But the ending was predetermined. So it was called hybrid wrestling. And so I jumped into that. I loved it. And went through a couple different organizations, because I went to one and they fell apart. Then I went to another one and that fell apart. So it was Fujiwara Gumi, Yamada, Takada were all together. Then they split into 3 groups and they formed a Fujiwara Gumi company, and I went with them. I was there for a short time, and then Funaki Suzuki and myself ended up talking about turning pro wrestling real. What would it look like? And so that's when Pancras started up. We basically said, let's see what pro wrestling looks like if we made it real. And so we did our first show. I fought Funaki in the finals and I beat him. And since that time, I've always been going one step up. The next chance I had was fighting in the UFC, because I went to Japan. I became the first champion there, and I was having fun there. I was really comfortable and getting paid very well.
You were getting paid well at this time?
Yeah, I was getting paid well. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. And so I remember thinking to myself, this is great. I go to Japan, I fight every month. Sometimes I'll take a month off, but man, it was good.
Yeah.
And then this UFC came up. One of my students showed me the flyer, and I said, no, that's fake, because it said no holds barred. You're talking back in what's this, 89, 90, yes. 91. No holds barred was pro wrestling. There was no such thing.
Right.
So I remember looking at it, and he kept saying, no, man, this is for real. So I said, all right, let me call the guy. I call him, and Art Davies gets on the phone, and we have a few conversations, and he calls me back after I tell him what I've done. I'm champion in Japan. I do this, that. And he goes, you're exactly what we're looking for. And so next thing I know, I'm in Japan defending my title. 3 days later, I fly to Denver, Colorado to fight in this so-called no holds barred UFC. My whole mind is thinking, there's no way that this is happening. I mean, there's no way. You're not going to let people kick somebody in the head, punch them on the ground, no gloves. That's just your mind at that time. We're like, no, there's no way.
Right.
So I'm going to play it out. Like, okay, let's go see. I bring Fouquet up there. I bring the doctor up there. My dad goes with me. I have a few of the Japanese kids that fly out with me to go to work my corner. So we get there, we have the press conference, and it is, you got half people that look like they can fight, and half of them look like they just came off a bar stool. One of them was walking around in pajamas, and that one person in pajamas almost put me to sleep. Like, put me in this choke with the gi that I'd never seen before, right? And I'm strong. Yes, I can pull anybody's arms off and choke me. You're not going to choke me. No one's ever going to choke me. I'll pull it off. I'm just that strong. And so he puts this thing in there, and I'm thinking, I'm going to kill this skinny kid. Like, I don't know what all the hype's about. And so I go and I win my first match, and I jump in to go against him, and I take him down, and I feel pretty good flowing with him. He's got great balance. I can tell he's got a really good experience, but I'm thinking I'm going to crush him. I think I weighed 190 something pounds at the time. And he probably went 180, 185. They lied about his weight, but he was about 180, 185. So we were really close in weight, but I just felt so much more stronger than him. I felt so much more quicker, and I felt like my balance was so much better than his. And the next thing I know is I'm rolling through. I'm thinking, as we're rolling, I'm getting ready to sit back for a leg. He's on the side of me, and I've got his leg. I'm getting ready to pull the leg and sit. And I feel something on my neck. And so I go to pull it off. I'm like, there's nothing there. It's like a rope, right? It's a rope around my neck, and he's pulling on. I'm like, he's choking me with the rope. I'm thinking in my head, this is a split second, but I'm thinking in my head, they took my shoes away. Like, literally, that's what I thought. When he's choking me with this, I'm relating them taking my shoes away, saying that it was a weapon, and now I'm getting choked with this rope. And I'm like, this is like, and I remember tapping, and I'm thinking to myself, I just tap, and you can look at I don't tap.
I know.
And I remember thinking to myself, I just tapped. And I have no idea why I did, because I normally just go to sleep. It wouldn't bother me, right? Yeah. But I tapped, and I'm thinking, why I just tapped. And but that was one of those ones where you look at that first UFC, there was so much chaos, so much confusion, because it was billed as no holds barred,
right? And
that you could do whatever you wanted. And so you go in there, and then at the rules meeting, they say, okay, we got a rules meeting. Like, wait a minute, this is supposed to be no rules. There, a lot of guys were confused about it. Like, wait a minute, I thought there was no rules. So then they said that Zane couldn't wear his kick pads. They said that somebody else couldn't tape their hands. They said I couldn't wear my shoes. And then they, Art Jemerson, they said he could wear one glove. We're like, I thought, what do you guys, what do you just tailor it the way you want it? It's like, one guy can't tape his hands. Another guy, you say he can wear a boxing glove. Another guy, you're saying he can't wear his shoes. What's the deal? Like, what are you doing?
Right.
It was chaotic. It was definitely chaotic.
Yeah, this is crazy. And then obviously, I think after that loss kind of led to facilitating the Lions Den, correct me if I'm wrong, which was obviously one of the first MMA camps, right? Like,
No, it was before that. I was
oh,
doing that. We were doing it over in Japan in 89.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You became the face of UFC at this time. Obviously, UFC was still in the early stages and so forth. At some point, and again, I could speak to you about this for 10 hours, but I want to be respectful. You end up jumping to the WWE and then obviously coming back and so forth. I know you learned so much about business in the WWE, specifically like the pay-per-view buys and merchandise stuff. Did you have an overall good experience there? And what was it like working for Vince McMahon?
I never had an issue with Vince. You know, we had our differences at times, you know, but I've never seen him, or he never done anything to me that would hinder me from moving on in my career. I know we sat down at the end there where I basically laid some stuff out and said, listen, I want out of my contract, you know, because I felt like that I was getting beat all the time. And that was after the Bret Hart incident. Yeah. And I was part of that crew. So it just felt like this probably wasn't where I wanted to be at the time. Yeah. And so we had a discussion and I was out of my contract. So Vince has never, from my knowledge, Vince has never done anything wrong to me. Yeah. He's always been great. He's been great to me. Good. I'm happy to hear that because I've had a bunch of wrestlers on and so forth. And obviously everyone's experience is different, but for the most part, everyone agrees with that. But you learned a lot about there with the business. So when you came back, Dana White and those guys already own the UFC? Yeah, I'd actually come back from Pride. Okay. I had fought over there. Remember coming back to the States and they actually approached me. Dana approached me and asked if I wanted to fight Tito because we had that feud that had happened when Guy had fought him and they called that fight early when they both were very tired. And, and it was called. And I was like, why'd you call that? And it was like, and so there was kind of a feud there me and Tito had. And I was already— Where was the UFC at this point? Were they doing well or not really? Gee, they were dead. They were doing under 30,000 buys. Tito was their champion. He was beating everybody. Yeah. And they couldn't get any buys. They were doing under 30,000 buys and they were dying. And so Dana came and approached me and asked if I wanted to fight. I just got done with my contract over in Japan. I had a 3-fight deal. I finished that. I came back to the US and he approached me and said, hey, you know, you want to fight? And I was like, yeah. I said, you know, I got some knee issues I need to fix up and take care of. And he said, well, how long is that? And I said, it's probably going to take me about a year, 9 months to a year. And he goes, dude, it's too long. I go, well, listen, man. I said, I've been fighting on this thing for a year now. I said, I just thought since this contract was up, I would go get it fixed. But if you need me to do this fight, I'll do it. I said, you know, I've done it already. I said, I'll just put it off because I had torn my ACL. I didn't blow it out. I tore it. So I'd just been fighting on it. And it was, you know, obviously not the best thing to do, but I was doing it. And so he offered me the fight and we worked out a deal where, okay, I'll do it. And I bet on myself because they weren't making the money they needed to. They were in debt when they bought it and they weren't getting the numbers they needed. So they were sinking, right? And so they came to me and Dana and asked, and I said, yeah, you know, but this is what I want because I was used to getting a certain amount of money. And he said, man, we can't pay that. And he goes, I said, well, I'll tell you what, this is where I learned from WWF is I said, I'll tell you what, I'll bet on myself. And Dana goes, what do you mean? He goes, listen, I'll bet on myself. I'll bet on the buy rates. And he looked at me, he's like, oh man, we can't. And I said, listen, I'll tell you, you guys are doing a certain amount of buys. Okay. If I do more than what you guys are doing, I get paid on those numbers. I won't take out of the numbers you're already getting, which is 30,000 buys. I won't take out of that, but anything over that, I'm getting paid. So you guarantee me a certain amount of money, which is a low rate, but I want to get paid if I do what I say I can do. And so we agreed. And I remember when we did it, we crushed it.
Shattered it.
We shattered it. And I trusted Dana and he came and told me they did a certain number and we just missed the mark. And I believed him. You know, I believed him. I didn't think that there would be a problem. I knew we did well. This was a lot of attention, but I thought, okay, well, all right, well, we'll just do it again. Then they offered me a 3-fight deal. And then when I signed the 3-fight deal, it negated that contract that we had already signed that would have stated that I got a certain amount of buys. So negated the contract. I wasn't obligated to get that anymore, even though it showed that what I did, but it didn't matter because I signed a contract that negated the first one. So it was what it was.
Oh, I didn't know
Disappointing
this.
that happened
I
because
didn't know that.
I felt like me and Tito went after one another verbally, and we built that up and we saved their company, and neither one of us got any. We didn't. I don't think we got truly rewarded for it for what we
Wow,
did.
that's disappointing. I didn't know that part of this story.
Yeah.
But you did reinvent the UFC. I'll tell you that.
I'd like to think that I was a part of it. Definitely. There was a lot of, you can't do it yourself. You got to have opponents. I thought Tito was a great opponent. I thought
Yeah, you got to have a
me
dance
and him
partner.
meshed well. We blew it up. And no matter what people want to say about Forrest Griffin and Stephen Bonner, that was a hell of a match,
Yeah.
a hell of a fight. But let's face it, okay? If you want to talk about saving the UFC, two guys from a reality show and a one fight thing that they did is not going to change the difference of whether UFC is moving forward or backwards. What's going to change it is two guys that already have established names. One is a legend, and another one is building himself as being the greatest fighter in the world, which was Tito.
Yeah.
And then we clash. It got a lot of eyeballs. Best damn sports show. I mean, you name. We went mainstream. These 100%. Kids from the Ultimate Fighter are not going mainstream.
No,
not happening. So everything we did for that fight. After the fight, those guys were celebrities, superstars.
Yeah.
Stephen Bonner, Forrest Griffin. They blew it up. They were awesome. But prior to that, me and Tito were the ones that brought the house down.
Definitely.
Period.
And you paved the way for the superstars today, like McGregor, and even before that, Ronda Rousey and so forth. And I just want to acknowledge you for all the business knowledge that you accumulated in the WWE or back then WWF that you brought with you. And it reminds me, like the big Hollywood actors these days, like they'll go into the movie with confidence and they'll take a little bit less up front and they'll get the box office because they bet on themselves. And that's how that's the difference between making 20 million for a film or 80 million, so to speak. So I love that you did that. And it's disappointing that maybe you didn't get rewarded for it, but obviously the numbers were there and that gave you a new 3-fight deal and so forth.
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, like I said, it was what it was.
Yeah.
It's in the past. But I'm just happy that I was a part of something like that, special to be a part of it, to start it. My name will be involved with it forever. Yes. And so for me, I'm very happy for that. I got no regrets, man. None.
You're being very humble right now. You were the UFC for years. Like when anyone thought of UFC, they think of Ken Shamrock. And even today, like the top 3 names of all time, like Ken Shamrock is the original UFC legend, so forth. So, and then you ended up being the first one inducted into the Hall of Fame, which is obviously well-deserved, right?
Yeah, that was awesome too. And to get in there with Hoist, it was, obviously 2 guys that literally put the UFC on the map.
Yeah, I love this. Last couple questions just from the audience because they're so engaged and so forth. What's your mindset like when you're going into a fight? Is it ever really personal, like you guys portrayed it to be with Tito, or is it like tunnel vision, like this guy in front of me has to go down because he's in the way?
Yeah, I know a lot of people have a hard time. Even my opponents probably have a hard time understanding this. It was never personal for me. Never. It was always about me getting in the frame of mind to destroy things, anything that was in my way. And I picked at things. So I disliked whoever I was fighting. I would pick at it because I felt that that's the best way. A lot of people are going, well, you got to get him rattled. He doesn't fight as well. And it was funny when I hear people say that, because that's the opposite thing you want to do to me, because I am a machine. And when you get me thinking like that, you're not stopping me. I don't care what you do. And obviously later in my career was much different when I got frustrated and angry and I get after somebody. And then of course I would lose. They would go, yeah, man, you just rattled him, got in his head. But you look back in my earlier days when people tried to get in my head, they didn't like the ending because I was a machine. You didn't want to set me off like that. Now, as I got older, I didn't have the abilities that I had then, but I would fight much better when people would give me a reason to fight.
Yeah. I know you talk often, and I live my life by this too, in terms of preparation, right? Like there's a quote, like God punishes the unprepared. I know how prepared you always are, and how by being prepared, that gives you the utmost confidence in anything that you're going to do, whether it be business, fighting, or anything, right?
Yes. And that was the hardest part towards the end of my career, was that I was never prepared. I did the work. I mean, I would train, but I would never be able to get a full training session in because my body would hurt, my joints would swell up. If I had one day I trained hard, I'd have to take 2 or 3 days off. It was just that bad. I was fighting Father Time, and my mentality wasn't to give up. And a lot of people would say, you fought too long, you fought too long. And I say to them, that's who I am. I'm never gonna say I give up. And so, yeah, okay, maybe you think I did because you're watching it. But to me, I had to know that I couldn't do another ounce of fighting. I had to know that. Just like when I broke my neck, I had to know when it was over, and it wasn't. And it's the same thing to this. If I thought the same way I did at the end of my career, where people were saying, hey, you probably should retire, I'm like, oh, okay, you're probably right. And then retired, I wouldn't have been that same guy that when I broke my neck said, I don't care what the odds are. Yeah. I'm not done.
This is gold, Ken. You're on absolute fire and you can't be stopped. I want to wrap it up with this. When you first met your pops, I know you talk about how you never really knew what love was, and you never really received like a proper hug. Him coming into your life, how important was that for the rest of your life, and how you view love and relationships today?
Yeah, I think it was important because I know I talked about this before, where people were asking about, my family and how I grew up. And I remember thinking back, the one thing that I when I watched other kids and they're with their families and the hugs and the things they would get, I didn't get that. I was probably 13 years old when I received my first hug.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking, because when I was younger, people would hug you, but they had alternative motives. You know what I mean? Especially when you're traveling in that group, that kind of area, there are a lot of people that are just bad people. So you would defend yourself from that stuff. And, but the first time I ever received a hug that was meant the way it was supposed to be was when I was at the Shamrock boys home. Even my mom, I don't remember her ever hugging me. I don't remember it. And I don't ever remember anybody ever taking me aside and saying, hey, do this, and then hugging. I don't ever remember that. First time I ever felt anything where someone tried to hug me was Bob Shamrock, and I pushed him away, because for me, that was off limits. That's out of bounds, because in the way I grew up was anybody that tried to touch you or hug you were wanting something else. And so when he did that, it took about probably a year being in the home, and he knew it too, because it said stuff in my file, stuff that had happened. Yeah. And how I was violent. And one guy was even killed. Guy that was a molester, was dead, found dead in his car, was the same guy that tried to do something to me when I was young. And so that whole process took a whole year for him to build that relationship to where I would allow him to hug me and not feel uncomfortable or weird about it.
Yeah.
And so it took a long time, because like I said, I'd never really been hugged or even told I love you until I was 13, 14 years old.
Yeah. I love that story, and I love how much he means to you and so forth. So thank you for sharing that. We'll wrap it up with this. Where can the audience support you, follow you, hang out with you? I know you're on Instagram and so forth. And most importantly, tell us about the stuff that you have going on right now with the business stuff.
Yeah. Right now we got an exciting show coming up. We're going to be relaunching Valor BK. We had it started before the COVID came around, and then we backed off. And so we've been working on that very vigorously, trying to put the right team together, bring in the right investors, the right sponsors. I think we've done that through the hemp industry. I love where that's going. We're trying to fight the opioid crisis and giving people options to do other things other than opioids. So I'm really big on that. So we want to align ourselves with some of the top industry people in the hemp and CBD industry. So that's what we're doing. But we are going to make an announcement probably in the next two weeks on where our next show is going to be. And we're excited about that. I think that's going to be huge. And if you want to check us out, you can go to valorbk.com. It has all our information there. If you want to fight on it, you can also go there and fill out the fighter form. We welcome you. But yeah, in the next 2 weeks, we're going to make that announcement. If you want to follow me personally and find out all the good things that we're doing, you can go to KenShamrock.com. I have all my social media stuff on there, and you can follow me through Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, you name it, I got it. Just go to KenShamrock.com and you can find all of that on there.
I'm going to tag you right after this on something on Instagram too myself. And the audience, the CLS audience is very loyal, engaging. They're definitely going to hit you up. You can have a bunch of new followers. If they hit you up, you're warm and friendly. You're not going to bite, right?
No, man. Come on. Let's have a party.
You're not going to choke anyone out?
No, man, I'm gonna bring him in. We want to have fun now.
Yeah, 100%. I just want to thank you personally, Ken, because like I said, I'm always go. Everyone's always like so shocked by my energy and my passion, but it's feeling a little bit down right after surgery. But speaking to you today was exactly what the doctor ordered. I've been a lifelong fan, and we talked about preparation. So I hope you could tell I prepared for you, because I wanted to show you the respect you deserve. And I legitimately am such a fan. And I just wanted to leave you with this. I wanted to say, you're the definition of resilience, grit, and heart, from growing up in a broken home, running away, entering the system, and overcoming adversity at an early age. Once you identified your passion for fighting, it provided an outlet for you, which gave you the opportunity to pave the way for the UFC, obviously WWE, for generations to come. You're a warrior, a champion in and out of the octagon. Your accomplishments are remarkable and the stuff of legend. But more importantly, your mindset is absolutely bulletproof. You're a role model and icon to anyone coming up today with big goals and dreams. I could personally guarantee your best is yet to come. I can't wait to continue to watch you fly in the world of business. And you have my word right here, right now, Ken. This will absolutely not be the last time that you and I collaborate, my friend.
Well, listen to me, man. I really appreciate those words. They're definitely, they're meaningful. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time, brother. We'll keep in touch.
All right, brother.
Bye, Ken.
Take care.
Bye, buddy.